any quarrel with the rape statute, none whatever, but I do have deep misgivings when the state asks for, and the jury gave a death penalty on purely circumstantial evidence. I mean, before a man is sentenced to death for murder, say, there should be one or two eyewitnesses. Someone be able to say, yes, I was there, and that saw him pull the trigger.
But lots of folks have been hanged on circumstantial evidence.
I know, and lots of them probably deserved it too. But in the absence of eyewitnesses, there's always a doubt, sometimes only the shadow of a doubt. The law says reasonable doubt, but I think a defendant's entitled to the shadow of a doubt. There's always a possibility, no matter how improbable, that he's innocent.
And it all goes back to the jury. Then we ought to do away with juries.
You're rather hard on us, son. I think maybe there might be a better way. Change the law. Change it so that only judges have the power of fixing the penalty in capital cases.
Then go up to Montgomery and change the law.
You'd be surprised how hard that would be. I won't live to see the law change. And if you live to see it, you'll be an old man.
No, sir. They ought to do away with juries. He wasn't guilty in the first place, and they said he was.
If you had been on that jury, son, and 11 others like you, Tom would be a free man. So far, nothing in your life has interfered with your reasoning process. There's 12 reasonable men in everyday life, Tom's jury. But you saw something come between them and reason. You saw the same thing that night in front of the jail. When the crew went away, they didn't go as reasonable men. They went because we were there. There's something in this world that makes men lose their heads. They couldn't be fair if they tried. In our courts, when it's the white man's word against the black man's, the white man's always wins. They're ugly, but those are the facts of life.
The author uses his subplot of Tom Robinson as a way to show racism throughout Macomb County. Racism caused conflict between the blacks and the whites, which leads to death in some cases in Macomb County. Tom lost the trial because he was black, which caused a conflict. In the scene, Atticus talks about how Tom Robinson and Atticus lost because of the color of his skin, even though they had a good amount of evidence in Tom's favor. Tom also lost because the jury didn't see him in the eyes of a child, which ties in with who saw Tom innocent. Children see people for who they are, and not for the color of their skin. Also, Jem asked many questions about the juries and the trial, which leads to the idea of Jem maturing because he realizes that racism is wrong, and he wants to stop racism. Tom lost, even though he was proven innocent, because racism was deep-rooted in Macomb.
Why don't people like us and Miss Maudie ever sit on juries?
I was wondering when that occurred to you. There are lots of reasons. For one thing, Miss Maudie can't serve on a jury because she's a woman.
You mean women in Alabama can't?
I do. I guess it's to protect our fair ladies from sordid cases like Tom's. Besides, I doubt if we'd ever get a complete case tried. The ladies would be so interrupting to ask questions.
I guess our forefathers were wise.
In this scene, Atticus is talking to Jem about why women can't serve on juries. We can tell the author's views on sexism are strong, because as Harper Lee writes, she uses more of a sarcastic tone. The change in tone also changes the mood to be more amusing to the reader. The conclusion is that no one in Macomb actually takes women seriously, even Atticus. Atticus is the one who is talking about the women, and is the one making fun of the women, which is ironic, because he is supposed to be innocent and symbolize the mockingbird.
You know something, Scout? I've got it figured out now. There's 4 kinds of folks in this world. There's the ordinary kind like us and the neighbors, the kinds like the Cunninghams out in the woods, the E-Wills down at the dump, and the Negroes.
What about the Chinese and the Cajuns?
I mean, Macomb County. The thing about it is, our kind of folks don't like the Cunninghams. The Cunninghams don't like the E-Wills, and the E-Wills hate the colored folk.
Nah, Jim. I think there's one kind of folks.
In this scene, Jem is explaining social segregation and how it relates to Macomb to Scout. Jem explains the 4 different social classes of Macomb that everyone follows. Scout contradicts what Jem says because she disagrees with what he believes about social segregation. Scout wants to believe that everyone is equal, but Jem is figuring out the truth about Macomb, which is that all the social groups dislike each other. This is a sign of maturation for Jem, because he is finally starting to realize that not everyone gets along. Jem is also starting to follow the ways of Aunt Alexandra and Miss Stephanie by separating everyone into social classes, even though Atticus strongly disagrees with what Jem is doing.
Jean Louise, you're a fortunate girl. You live in a Christian home, Christian folks, and a Christian town. Out there in Jig Iron's Everest, there's nothing but a sin and a squalor.
Sin and squalor? What's that, Miss Merriweather?
Oh, that? Well, I always say forgive and forget.
thing that church had to do is help her lead a Christian life for those children from here on out. Some of the men have to go out there and tell that preacher to encourage her.
Are you talking about Mayelle and Yule?
May? No, child. That Darky's wife, Tom's wife, Tom?
Robinson, ma'am.
There's one thing I truly believe, Gertrude. Some people just don't see it my way. If we just let them know we forgive them, that we've forgotten them, then this whole thing will blow over.
Excuse me, Miss Merriweather. What'll blow over?
Nothing, Jean Louise. The cooks and field hands are just dissatisfied. But they're settling down now. They grumbled all next day after that trial.
Gertrude, I tell you, there's nothing more distracting than a sulky darky. Their mouths go down to here. It just ruins your day to have one of them in the kitchen. You know what I said to my Sophie, Gertrude? I said, Sophie, you simply are not being a Christian today. Jesus Christ never went around grumbling and complaining. And you know, it did her good. She took her eyes off that floor and said, no, Miss Merriweather, Jesus never went around grumbling. I tell you, Gertrude, you never ought to let an opportunity go by to witness for the Lord.
At the religious meeting, the women are gossiping, which is ironic, because at a religious meeting, they should be spreading religion and doing good deeds, not gossiping. This ties in with religion because religion is a big part of makeup, but no one is acting very religious. While they are gossiping, they talk about the blacks and all the misguided people in Maycomb. To conclude, prejudice is running rampant through Maycomb because Aunt Alexandra, the Ills, Miss Stephanie, and the rest of the town is racist. Different social classes don't associate with each other, and the women aren't treated equally.